It is Monday, February 2nd, and you're watching the SIG podcast. Trust the process. Folks, the Montreal Canadiens are 6-3-1 in their last 10 games. They are currently third in the Atlantic, one spot away from the Detroit Red Wings for second in the division. The Laval Rocket are 26-14-2-2 this season, and they're still first in the North Division. Things are going well in the Montreal Laval area. And we're going to talk about that. Today's our Monday show, so we're going to focus on Habs. But we're also going to focus on a thing that not many people give enough credit to. I'm not going to tease it just yet. You'll just have to wait and find out. Well, later on, we got a few mailbag questions in the queue. Top quality as always. Really impressed with the quality of questions from our listeners. And we got a whole bunch of other stuff in between. It's going to be a fun show, and it all starts right here, right now.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Trust the process. The sickest NHL prospect podcast with Snake and Shayne.
With the 5th overall selection in the 2024 NHL Draft, the Montreal Canadiens are proud to select Ivan Demidov.
It's gonna be sick.
That's right, producer Shayne here, joined as always by my co-host Simon the Snake Boisvert. Snake, how we feeling today?
Fantastic.
Excellent.
As usual.
Yes, and you know, we try to go in studio as often as we can, but this week, and I think next week as well, we won't be in studio because the Cavaleros are not in studio either. They are in San Francisco for the Super Bowl. Okay, so if anybody watching this happens to be in San Francisco and wants to contact the Cavaleros, please, I encourage you to do so. They're going to have some great content there. You can follow all of our football shows as well to be updated on all that stuff. Snake, I mean, might as well ask you, who do you got?
That's a tough one. I know the Seahawks are favorite, and I know they're the logical choice because obviously they're a more experienced team than the Patriots, and historically, teams that bounce back like the Patriots did, the first year they don't win, so they might win next year or the year after. But you know what? I love Drake May. I'm hoping for Drake May and the Patriots to win for that reason, because of Drake May. I don't know, Sam Darnold. It's kind of interesting. If someone had told football fans the day he was drafted that 7 years down the road he'd be in the Super Bowl, most of them would have said, "Yeah, it makes sense," because he was pretty good at USC. Mm-hmm. But then after 1 or 2 years, I mean, Jets fans wanted him out, and he started he was just a backup. He played for the Niners, he played for Carolina. Then he had a great year with Minnesota last year, but he stumbled in the playoffs. I don't know. It's hard for me to wrap my head around the fact that Sam Darnold might win the Super Bowl.
Well, we'll find out soon enough. I got the Seahawks. I'm a big fan of their team. I like the way they play, and I like Sam Darnold. I like the fact that his grandpa is like the most interesting man ever. Did you hear about that, Snake?
No.
His grandpa, his name is, I shit you not, Dick Hammer, and he is the Marlboro Man. He is the Marlboro Man.
The cigarette.
Yeah, that's him.
I didn't know that.
Anyways, I've seen this story a bunch of times. It's really funny, but Sam Darnold, I mean, he's an interesting guy. Drake May is the most likable dude ever, it seems. Anyways, I'm not a big football guy, but thought it was worth having this little discussion. And I invite you all in the chat as well to give us your Super Bowl picks. But Snake, switching back to hockey now.
Football is my favorite sport, don't you?
I do know that. I know you like the Jaguars colors. I know you like.
No, but seriously, football is my favorite sport. And hockey fans are always very surprised when I mention this, because my podcasts are about hockey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sometimes we'll have a little football discussion here. Why not? And you know what? It encouraged every viewer to go check out our football shows, because we have like 20 of them. Like, we have a bunch of football shows here at the Sick Podcast. Just about every team has a show here. So if your favorite team, whoever it may be, we probably have a show for you there. Do go check it out. But switching back to hockey now, because I believe that's what most people want to hear about. You know, I think it's safe to say that the Seattle Seahawks and the New England Patriots have good player development in their organization, because clearly, I mean, they made it to the Super Bowl, right? The players have improved. Talk about Sam Darnold, right? People said, "Ooh, he wasn't going to make it," with the Jets, and now look at him now at the Super Bowl, right? Player development, and that's what we're going to focus on most today, because that's something that the Montreal Canadiens have struggled with mightily for years, but not recently. So in the Bergevin era, right, kept drafting players, prospects, first round, and they never panned out. Now, maybe some of them were just not properly scouted, or some of them were not properly developed. And that's an important part of trusting the process, right? The process. It includes player development. You don't want the drafted player to be the same in his draft year than he is 5 years removed, right? You want progress. You want development. Therefore, teams have invested more and more into player development, such as the Montreal Canadiens. Since Jeff Gorton, Kent Hughes have taken over, they've really put an emphasis on player development, hired Adam Nicholas, Rob Ramage, Paul Byron, Francis Bouillon, and the list goes on. Really, they have a big personnel devoted to player development. And Snake, the result is apparent, okay? Nick Suzuki, I'll just run down the top guys, right? Nick Suzuki's on for career best, 95 points this season. Cole Caulfield's on pace for a career best, 85 points. Wayne Hudson's on pace for a career best, even though it's his second season, 83 points. Demidov's on pace for 67 points. Slavkovsky's on pace for career best, 66 points. Noah Dobson's having a great year, 52 points, on pace for his best goal-scoring year. Oliver Kapanen is on pace for 44 points. I mean, talk about player development, okay? Every guy on this team, or almost every guy, is having an upward trajectory. And I think that's a great testament to the team's player development program. What say you, Snake?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. But what I've noticed over the years is that whenever a player doesn't pan out, player development is seen as the culprit, for the failure of the player very often. And if players develop well, we're going to say, oh, they drafted well. And now I think that what you have to look at the big picture. And first of all, I think player development is a term that is a little vague to most people. What is player development? I think there are many branches to player development. First of all, and in no particular order, but I'm just going to name you what I feel is what teams should do for player development, is, first of all, the minute the player is drafted, where should he play the following year and the year after and after in order to maximize his progress, his potential? So let's say you have a guy who's drafted out of, Europe, and you feel that the player should come to America ASAP. The Buffalo Sabres did it with Konsta Ilenius, Isaac Rosen. Rosen is not establishing himself in the NHL. So I'm not saying that Buffalo is doing good or bad. I'm just giving you examples. Buffalo has been very, very aggressive with bringing European players. Yuri Kulik, 18 years old. He was playing in Rochester. So there's a pattern here. They've been very aggressive into bringing their players. Other teams, they leave them marinate in Sweden, Finland, Russia, and they'll come when they're ready. And sometimes players want to stay also. Not only that, but sometimes players do want to stay. So I think what you do with the player after you've drafted him is one aspect of player development. Like, I'm looking at what the Sharks were doing with Michael Misa this year. Michael Misa, they started to keep him at the age of 18. He didn't play much. Then he got injured. Then he went to the World Juniors. He's back. And right now, he's very, very, very good. So those who were disappointed when they saw him at the tournament last month should not be worried. He's very, very good. Now, is it good player development? I kind of criticized what they were doing at first because I was concerned they were going to return him to junior hockey after the tournament, which is what some teams do. And so I think, there's no like one recipe for success. It has to fit the player because for every development pattern, I'll give you an example of a success. I'll give you an example of a failure.
Precisely.
Yeah. So it also has to do with the player himself. Like you were saying, maybe he's not well scouted. Maybe the player doesn't put in doesn't put in the effort, but maybe the player, let's say, remember Shayne Wright. I'm throwing a bunch of examples, but it's just to show my point. Remember Shayne Wright, the first year, starts the season in Seattle. Then he goes to the American Hockey League for a couple of weeks for what they call conditioning. Then he goes to the World Juniors. Then he's sent back to junior hockey. That's 4 teams within a few months. I think he couldn't handle it. I don't think it was good for him. But other players, they did the same thing and it worked. So that's one thing. Where you put the players on the board, where are they gonna go next year and the year after? That's very important. So that's one thing. The second thing is, once they go to college or Europe or whatever, back to junior hockey, do a follow-up. Do a follow-up in terms of having your player development staff call up the guy, visit him once in a while, see what's happening, talk to coaches. You can't really interfere with a coach's job when a player is playing in the NCAA. You can't tell him, you got to play him on the power play or whatever. You can't do that. But at least you can follow up and show the player that the team cares about him. I think that's very important. And tell him, okay, well, this year you worked on this. It's fine. This you have to improve. That's what could happen next year if you do this, if you do that. So that's the second thing. The third thing is the skills coaches. I think as much as possible, they should get involved. Especially once the player is either in the American Hockey League or the NHL. I think we talked about it during the last podcast, but we've heard quite often that, KK Kotkaniemi was not the hardest worker. He didn't want to stay after practice to practice face-offs and stuff like that. So that's on the players. That's the player's contribution to his development. But at the same time, perhaps a team can be like a little bit more strict with the player, saying, "Look, you're being paid. You're with it. You're in the organization, and that's the plan we have for you." And players are employees.
That's it.
So at some point they should adhere to whatever is to whatever they're told, in the sense that as long as it goes within the collective bargaining agreement restrictions.
That's it.
So you can't force a player to come to stay after a game and practice face-offs at 1 a.m. But there are things I think that can be done. So I think that's the 3 main elements. And maybe a fourth one, I would say, once he's in the NHL, how do you manage his minutes? Who do you play him with? Because the guy has to gain some sort of confidence. I know hockey players are confident by nature because they've reached that very, very high level of hockey. But let's not forget also that these guys, probably until junior hockey, they were always the best player on their team. That's very true. Often. And once you get to the NHL, well, there are first liners, there are fourth liners. And although the fourth liner is one of the top players in the world, they are seen in the NHL as basically interchangeable. They're not paid as much, and whenever the team is on losing streak, they don't bench the stars. They bench the fourth liners. So I think that how you play a guy at first, how you bring him along. Let's take Slafkovsky, for example. Slafkovsky, they made the decision to not return him to Finland, not send him to junior hockey, and not send him to Laval. All three options were on the table.
Yep.
They decided to keep him around. It was a difficult year. He was injured, and at some point they shut him down for the rest of the year. And there were people at the time who were calling him a flop. Look, had Slafkovsky gone to, I don't know, Blainville, Boisbriand, Armada, and he had 125 points, he would have been seen as a top prospect. But he goes to the Canadiens. He has a difficult year at age 18. He flopped. The same thing was said about Joe Thornton a long time ago.
Oh, yeah.
Joe Thornton was playing on the fourth line when he arrived in the NHL. Today, he's a Hall of Famer. But at the age of 18, the team decided to keep him around. Now, is it good for every player to be kept around at 18? No. So again, there's no formula. There's no magic formula. But the team has to be able to identify and determine what is best for the player. And I think in a way, it's kind of a gamble. The Habs gambled with Slafkovsky that it was good for him to play in the NHL at 18. But I have to say that, what you mentioned at first, the Habs are doing a very good job at it because not many players regress when you think about it.
Exactly.
And I know that Suzuki and Caulfield were already kind of established when the new management arrived, but they were still very young. Mm-hmm. And they've always progressed. Point-wise, game-wise, they've always progressed. Lane Hudson was brought in at the right time at age 20. Mm-hmm. And he's better this year than last year. Look, even Kapanen. I'm not sure if it's sustainable, but the guy has 17 goals.
Mm-hmm.
But then one might say, well, look at Reinbacher. Well, Reinbacher was injured.
Yeah.
They did I'm not... Look, should they have brought him to Laval at age 19? I understand why they didn't do it, because he was not a popular choice and there was Michkov and everything. I get it. But again, he was injured. So I don't think it's the development team's fault that he was injured. Now, Kirby Doc arrived here at the age of 21, hasn't really progressed. But again, he was injured, and I think Kirby Doc was who he is now. Mm-hmm. I don't think... I think player development will go as far as the player's talent also.
Player's talent and the player's willingness.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's kind of complex. It's kind of complex because you can apply the same recipe for two players and their paths are gonna be very different. But there's also a pattern. I remember the Islanders many years ago. They had top 5 picks like Niederreiter, Michael Dalcol, Griffin Reinhart. What was the other? Oliver Wahlstrom. Well, he was picked 11, but still, they had high draft picks that really didn't pan out. So at some point, you had to wonder, were all these players that bad? Or were the Islanders failing in their development? Niederreiter went to other teams, and he did well. He's not a star, but he's a very decent player. And with the Islanders, he was doing nothing. Mm-hmm. So I think there are patterns, and right now I think that the Habs are showing that the pattern is good.
That's it.
And there's other teams also doing this.
But I like the fact that you mentioned, Snake, that it's not a cookie cutter approach, right? It's an individual, unique approach because every player is different, right? And credit to Tony, Tony Marinaro, who had Kevin Poulin on his French show in the morning this week, former Laval Rocket goalie. And he said that the thing he appreciated most from Marco Marciano, the new goalie coach for the Canadiens, is that he understood every goalie's style and worked with them based on their style. He didn't force, one specific style on each goalie. He approached it differently with each one. And I think that's proper player development, right? And again, another credit to Tony, who way back had Paul Byron on the show. And Paul Byron explained his role a little bit with the Canadiens and how he's involved in player development. And he said he took Owen Beck, for example. He's like, I call Owen Beck every week, every 2 weeks. We look at footage. I talk to him about his games, what he liked, what he didn't like, what I liked, what I didn't like. And they have these conversations, right? So it's individualistic approaches that I think make the difference, right? And back then, and I say back then, I mean Bergevin era, okay? There's none of that, right? Unless I'm completely wrong here, please someone correct me. But I really doubt there was any of that to that extent, right? And then you have Adam Nicholas on the ice with the players, who is probably the top in his field. Like, I don't know that there's a better guy than Adam Nicholas and what he does. So all of that combined, right? So the team invested a lot into player development. But Snake, it's also the players, okay?
Yeah.
There's a thing called coachability. And we hear that term a lot, right? Especially in scouting. He's coachable. This guy's a coachable guy, right? And it's kind of a broad term a little bit. How can you be coachable, right? I guess it's more of a open-mindedness, right? Ability to accept and absorb, not criticism, but constructive criticism, right? Tweaks, details, things like that, right? Being able to listen and implement those lessons in game, in practice. So let's talk a bit about coachability, because I want to get your take on that and how you can pick that apart when scouting a player. Like, oh, this guy's coachable, this guy's not.
You talk to coaches before drafting them, because let's say in junior hockey, scouts talk to midget AAA coaches, and very quickly we know who is coachable and who is not. And it's a very small world. Hockey is a very, very small world. When you think about it, it's like a village. And everybody knows everybody's habits on the ice, off the ice. And yeah, it is taken into consideration. But the other thing you have to consider is how a person will evolve. You draft them after their 17-year-old season. So maybe a guy who is not coachable when he's a teenager might be coachable at age 22 when he's matured. So, but, players are drafted at that age, so you have to live with it. And it is very important because, and in any field, not just hockey, but any field, whether it be, the podcasting world or working in an office or whatever, as a salesman, you have to be coachable. You have to be able to meet up with your boss and accept the fact that, perhaps the boss has noticed that you could improve on this or that, and not just simply brush it off and slam the door and just say, no, you're wrong. And there are some players who want nothing. They want nothing to do with coaching. I think it's a minority, however. I do think it's a minority. But there are players out there who don't really care. They want to do it their way, and they want to play their way. Look, you want to do that? Go play golf, go play tennis.
Yeah. Individual sports.
Because then you're going to pay the price, and no one else will.
That's it. No, it's a great point. And Snake, another point I'd like to bring up as well is maybe a bit of a misconception that player development is solely focused on rookies, prospects, young players. Development never stops, right? And the teams that end up going far realize that, right? The Florida Panthers realize that development never stops. They keep developing their players. The Colorado Avalanche realize that. The Tampa Bay Lightning realize that, right? I think the Montreal Canadiens are realizing that development never stops. I brought up some names, right? Nick Suzuki, who is 26 years old, right? Or 27, I don't know, something like
26,
that, right?
Yeah.
But he's on pace for his best season, and he's been having his best season every year this season.
He's always improved, which should be the normal pattern for every player, but doesn't happen this way. Very, very few players have such a linear development as Suzuki, at least stats-wise. But also, it's easy for him to, in a way, because he never misses a game. Whereas if you look at other players, they all miss like 10 games, 15 games, one season or the other. Look at Sidney Crosby at the beginning of his career. After a few years, he started having concussions. And I think there are 3 seasons in a row where he barely played. So in Suzuki's case, you just have to look at one number, 82. Okay, it's constantly going to be 82 or 56 during COVID. And then you look at the point total and it goes up and up and up and up and up. That's very rare. That's very, very rare. And he's reaching his peak at the age that most players reach their peak. Although that's been debated by statisticians and analytics guys, that basically for a forward, the peak is closer to 22, 23, whereas it used to be like 26, 25, 26, 27. I'm not going to get into this kind of debate because I don't really know the answer, but that's what it used to be. And I think right now the peak is probably achieved at a younger age than 26. But it used to be like this. So Suzuki is like an old-fashioned player.
There you go.
Because if you look at Guy Lafleur, his best seasons, he was like 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28. Those were his best seasons. Yeah. So the median age is like 25, 26. That's when he won his Hart trophies. But that's a long time ago. And today, players start earlier. And look at Connor McDavid. I mean, he's already a superstar in his second season. Look at Macklin Celebrini. He's on pace for 120 points. So what's he going to do at 26, 200 points? I doubt it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and maybe another factor that could be helping Suzuki is that the team around him is improving.
Yeah, it got better also. Yeah, it does help.
But then again, that's part of player development. I think it, like, everything kind of relates back to that because the personnel hasn't changed that much. Like, the core pieces have stayed there, but they've all progressed. Cole Caulfield, right? They bring in Noah Dobson this year, who had a down year last year, right? This year's on pace for 52 points. His goal scoring career high with 15, on pace for 15, right? Take Mike Matheson, for example, okay? Since joining the Habs, he's progressed pretty much every year. First year, of course, he had PP1, so he put up points, but I feel like he's gotten better overall every year. And he's not a young guy, typically. You know what I mean? So that's why I say development never stops, and teams that realize that fact tend to do better down the road. Snake, before we take off from this topic, we actually received an email question. Now, this is the first email question we've ever received, and we encourage you all to do so if you'd like to. But we received an email question about this topic, funny enough. So I think it'd be appropriate to bring it up now and discuss it. So this is from Steve B. and saying, hey, guys, love the show. So informative. Thank you, Steve. Had a question. I was wondering if there was some way to gauge the relative strength of individual team development programs. We hear that this or that player wasn't developed properly. It seemed that this is very important assessing whether draft picks are well selected. Detroit, for example, was regarded as a team that developed players well. Montreal and Tampa Bay are more recent examples. Other than having enough players at each position to allow more time in the AHL, what makes a team good at developing players? How much influence does this really have on a player's final assessment post-draft? Thanks for some really interesting shows. Well, thank you, Steve, for the great questions. Like, where do we begin with this?
I think player development can make scouts look very good or very bad. So now the question is, the end result is always what matters when you judge your scouting team.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have a lot of misses, the scouting team might be dismissed. Now, is it always their fault? No. But I do think that most of the time, I think player evaluation was wrong from the start. I mentioned the Islanders from 10, 15 years ago, who I think were not very good at developing player, because personally, I thought that the players they picked, well, some of them were, I think, were better than what they became.
Yeah.
But then perhaps my evaluation was wrong. We don't know. I like Michael Dalcol a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He bombed. I'm tempted to say, the Islanders didn't develop him properly because based on Niederreiter and Reinhardt and Wallstrom and all these guys. But at the same time, maybe I underevaluated the fact that Michael Dalcol was a very poor skater. And I know skating is not everything. But at that time, the league was becoming, Dalcol was drafted in 2014. At the team, the league was becoming faster and faster and faster. So 2-3 years later, when he reached the show, maybe he became like a dinosaur. Because the guy was drafted 5th overall. So I wasn't the only one who liked him, obviously. But I wonder now, maybe I underrated his weakness. However, Mark Stone was an even worse skater. But he was drafted in the 6th round. So in the 6th round, you're just throwing darts. It doesn't matter if the guy doesn't pan out. But Mark Stone became a top player. Did he improve his skating? Yes. Is that player development? Yes. But it's also, skating is not that easy to improve. There are guys who go through lessons and summers, of practicing, and with they can afford having expensive coaches. They don't improve. And some others, they do. It clicks. And I think it's the same way in every field. At school, same thing. There are some social students who improve and they go through university studies and they're better students at university than they were in high school. But some of them, they're not going to high school. They don't reach university. They can't make it. I mean, even though they put in the effort. So it's such a crapshoot when you think about it.
Yeah. But
you don't want to think of it as a crapshoot, because if you do, then you won't care. You won't do anything as a manager, as a player development manager, general manager, whatever. If you always think it's a crapshoot, just take the NHL Central Scouting list, forget about paying scouts, forget about playing a development team, and just pick the players, and you save a few millions.
Mm-hmm.
Think about it. So I think what's important is the number of hits vis-a-vis the number of misses. Like the Habs right now, their young players are developing well. So if one here and there doesn't develop well, it doesn't mean that the whole system doesn't work. But it starts with scouting. I think the players were well scouted.
Exactly. No, it's a process, right? It's a synergy. It's a bunch of different factors that go into play that ultimately build a contending and Stanley Cup championship caliber team. But it starts with scouting. It starts with player development. These are factors that are very important that can dictate whether or not, let's say, a rebuilding team does.
Because I'll ask you a question, Shayne.
Yes.
You follow the Rocket, and you've seen this guy play for a few years now. Is Philippe Méchard a scouting mistake or a development failure?
Scouting.
There you go.
Yeah. No, that's it. Every player is different. I mean, we could talk about examples of players who had all the potential in the world, but were completely mismanaged, right? And then it kind of blew up their career.
The important thing is that those who are good stay good, or become even better.
Exactly.
That's what matters. So again, was Dalcol good or not? So you see how tricky it is?
That's it. It's an interesting discussion.
Méchard, I wasn't crazy about him in his draft here. To me, he was not a first rounder. So I'm not surprised that's what happened. I think it was a scouting, error. Look, 26th overall, you basically, usually you'll expect a third or a fourth liner. So it's not a big mistake. It's not like they struck out, on the number one pick.
Yeah.
And obviously they got Lane Hudson later in the draft. So it kind of compensated. If Hudson had been drafted 26th and Méchard 62nd, no one would talk about Méchard.
Yeah.
And the end result is the same. They got Slavkovsky, they got Hudson. So whatever order they got them doesn't really matter. But in a way, this is, it's important to draft good players, because then you give your development team, you facilitate their job.
Exactly.
I think, but it's very complex. I mean, and I know that sometimes I know that we all want to find the formula that works. We want it to be like almost mathematical.
Yeah.
And and you know, Detroit at the time, Detroit was mentioned by the listener, by Steve. Yeah, they were very good at it because they had lots of players. They were loaded at every position, so they could let the players develop in the American Hockey League. You remember, they were a model of development because they never brought the players early in their career. They waited until they were 22, 23, and when they were mature, they were getting on the fourth line, then the third line, and then they would pan out. Okay, that was seen as a perfect model of development. Mm-hmm. But why is it at some point, like we said last week, that whenever Nicholas Lidstrom left and Fedorov and Yzerman and all these guys left, why is it that all of a sudden that Detroit, the Red Wings way, they would call it, the Red Wings way didn't work? Ken Holland was still there. He lost Jim Nill, who became the GM in Dallas. Maybe Jim Nill was the genius, but who knows? Who knows? I'm just speculating. But the point is, Ken Holland was seen as the development genius in the late 90s, early 2000s. Then the Red Wings all of a sudden, we're a little bit thinner. They weren't drafting well. The players were I wouldn't say a rush, but they were brought to the NHL at an earlier age than they used to be. So all of a sudden, where's the Red Wings way?
It's coming back now. It's coming back. I mean, take Sebastian Cossa, for example.
Yeah. Oh my God.
NHL for forever, but it's working. I mean, the Grand Rapids is the best team in the AHL. And
that's the thing. Grand Rapids, I've been wanting to talk about them because if you look at their record, I mean, it's pretty amazing.
It's ridiculous.
They haven't lost many games this year. And I was looking at I was looking at the roster, and I'm thinking, okay, there's Brent said Nygaard, there's Nate Danielson who's young, there's Cossa who's still young, but it's more of a veteran team right now. Yeah. So it doesn't mean that the Red Wings are going to be a powerhouse in 3 years. But about Cossa, if you look at the stats, and you know, I like Cossa and everything, but if you look at the stats, all their goalies have fantastic stats. So is Cossa's season the product of what's happening in Grand Rapids? I mean, I think they give up less than 2 goals a game.
My goodness.
Yeah, I think they give up less than 2 goals a game. So you have to be careful with Cossa. Once you bring him to the NHL, is he really the star that he's supposed to be? And again, we're talking about development, farm teams. What do you do with farm teams?
That's important.
I know you have to have a number. You have a finite number of veterans that you can have, but how do you pick them? How old should they be? What role should they play on the team? There are fans who think that the top 6 players should only be 20-year-old players, and that the veterans should just be on the fourth line. And vice versa. Something that, you know, put the veterans on the top line. Then I think you have to mix to have a mix of both. And I think ideally in the American Hockey League, just put 2 young guys with 1 veteran on each line. Again, is that a formula that's going to work for every team? No, but that would be my way of doing it. You pair up a young defenseman with a veteran. So basically, you have, 6 or 7 veterans on the team, let's say. So 1 on each line, 1 on each defensive pairing, and maybe 1 goalie, like the Laval is doing with Kakkonen.
Exactly.
Yeah. I think that Laval is doing a pretty good job at it with Laurent Dauphin and Lucas Condotta and Belzile. I think they're doing a pretty good job at it. It's a pretty good mix. The Hershey Bears, on the other hand, they just want to win.
Yeah.
So it's all veterans, but it's because some teams are still owned by a third party,
independent,
and not by the team. So they cannot dictate what to do. The Colorado Avalanche, I think they were horrible at developing players in the last few years. Horrible. Why? And that's why they had to do all these trades and get free agents, because in Colorado, they do not own the team.
Yeah.
So the Colorado Eagles have an independent owner who wants to put people in the stands, and he wants to make money and he wants to win. I can't blame him. But in this case, when the Avs have a young, 19, 20, 21-year-old player, well, he shouldn't expect to get a lot of ice time because they want to play their veterans. So that's another aspect of development, the American Hockey League team. And I know the American Hockey League team does not develop forward superstars because these guys usually, they go straight to the NHL or they play 20 games in the American Hockey League. But the American Hockey League is there to develop goalies. It's there to develop defensemen and bottom six players.
That's it. Look, I think we've covered most of it. If anybody has any more questions or more comments about player development or any topic related to that, you know what to do. The chat is open. Now, Snake, before we move along, I think it's a perfect time for me to tell you all about our great partners here at the Sick Podcast. And I want to start off with a big shout out to the people at Cheapest T-Shirts. It's simple. Really, if you're looking for the cheapest prices on wholesale apparel in Canada, you will find them at cheapesttshirts.ca. They're proudly Canadian and trusted by thousands of customers from coast to coast. They deliver unbeatable value every day. You'll always get the cheapest prices, plus same-day shipping and even next-day delivery. So your order arrives fast. Enjoy free shipping on larger orders and a simple, easy-to-use website that makes online ordering a breeze. Get the cheapest deals in Canada today at cheapesttshirts.ca. And, of course, our friends at Betway. Don't select a bus with Betway and get a deposit matchup bonus up to $300 on your first deposit. You can scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and redeem your welcome offer. The offer is only available for new customers. Terms and conditions apply. The offer is not available in Ontario, and you must be 18 years or older. Please play responsibly. All right, we got 3 great questions waiting in the mailbag, so let's go digging. Perfect. Question number 1 comes from Lou Mark saying, would the Sharks deal Quentin Musty in a package for Artemi Panarin? And would this help or hurt Quentin Musty? Now, Snake, we've heard rumors that the Sharks might be interested getting Panarin. Talk about speeding up the rebuild, but should they give up one of their most promising players to do so?
I think the Panarin upcoming trade is very intriguing because deadline trades for unrestricted free agents are very, very, I consider, unpredictable.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see a trade where you think that the player will garner a first-round pick, a top prospect, and a roster player, and they get a second-round pick for him. It's happened before.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we're going to go through all this in a month, and you and I are going to go, okay, only this for that, and that much for this. It's very, very, and it doesn't seem like trades are based on, let's call it jurisprudence. Like GM will call and say, last year some team gave up this for this player. This is a comparable. No, it's all about the market, and the markets fluctuates depending on how many sellers there are, depending on how many buyers are interested in the said player.
Yeah.
There's also salary cap issues to consider, especially with Panarin, who has a very large contract. Okay, they could retain salary. There will be only 25 games left, but still, some teams are very, very tight against the cap, and so you never know. Also, when do you strike? Would Panarin be more valuable now than he would be on March the 6th, or vice versa? We really don't know. So all this to say that about Musty, I wouldn't be surprised if he were included in a package, but I wouldn't be surprised if he were not. And the Sharks only gave up, let's say, a first-round pick and a B prospect.
Yeah.
But if I were the Rangers, of course I would ask.
Go after.
Now, what would it do to Musty? Rangers. Ugh. Are they going to start playing the young guys? They were supposed to 7-8 years ago when they sent the letter. But then Lafrenière, Kako didn't play that much. Kraftstoff, talk about development. Kraftstoff, Liam Anderson. I mean, that's not a good batting average in terms of developing players. So I'm not sure, as a fan of Musty's, I'm not sure I would like him to go to the Rangers unless they really, really change their focus next year. I think they're going to have to. And it was probably a good idea that they gave up the pick to Pittsburgh last year. I think they knew what was coming because that pick is probably going to be a better pick than the one they gave Pittsburgh last year.
There you go.
Yeah. But that's going to be an interesting trade scenario. There's a roster freeze this week. We might talk about it on Thursday as a done deal, or we're going to talk about it later after the Olympics.
Who knows? It might just happen after we upload the show. That tends to happen.
Oh, yeah.
Kiefer Sherwood got traded right after we talked about him potentially being traded. We're the professional jinxers here, so who knows? It might happen today, but yeah, it's
we're mind readers.
Yeah. Well, listen, from one of Snake's favorite players to another, let's go to question number 2 here. And this one's coming from Michael. What happened to his boy Trevor Connolly? He said he was a top 5 talent.
You see, that's the perfect example of a player who, let's say, doesn't go back to junior hockey and dominate. He went to Providence last year. He was injured all year. Providence is not a high-scoring team. So it was kind of a wasted year. This year, they signed him to contract to play in the AHL. And right now, only Ilya Protas is a 19-year-old player playing in the AHL on a regular basis. Some of them were called up, like Elenius in Buffalo. And there are obviously some in the NHL. But I'm talking in the AHL right now. There are 2 19-year-old players, Protas and Connolly. Connolly, I think, has 9 points in 14 games. I've watched every one of his shifts, believe me. He is super fast. He makes plays at high speed. Now it's a matter of bulking up. And I think he's closer to the NHL. In terms of skills, I think he's an NHL player right now. Physically, no. And I think that's the only reason why he's not in the NHL right now, because the Golden Knights have a lot of injuries.
Yeah.
But, he's only played 14 games this year again. So it's always funny when I have a player like this that I like, and if he's not a Celebrini at age 19, it's happening.
Yeah.
Or if he's not doing, let's say, if he doesn't score like 150 points in junior hockey. So no, Trevor Connolly is fine. He's 19 years old is in the American Hockey League, so he's ahead of most 19-year-old players in the world right now, except those who are playing in the NHL, and there are very few of them.
There you go.
So he's fine. He's fine. He's going to be fine. The only thing is, and I'm being I'm trying to be very objective regarding this player, although I love the guy. Well, I love the player. I've never met him personally, but you know what I mean. Is that he's often injured. And you know how we always talk about Kaden Gooley and Kirby Dach as being often injured.
Yeah.
And I always say that an injured player is a useless player on a team, no matter how good he is. And right now, I'm concerned that Trevor Connolly is constantly going to be injured. It's early in his career, but it's been a couple of years now where he's constantly injured. I think he's not strong enough. He's very, very thin, and I don't know about his frame, but he obviously needs to become stronger because he's going to get hammered in the NHL.
Yeah.
So that's my take on him for now. That's the only negative side. The negative point is that, it's the injuries.
Not much you could do there.
Yeah.
All right. Third and final question. This one coming from Fawn Budweiss.
Yeah.
Hope fan, I don't know, something like that. Wonder why David Pastrnak fell to 25th in 2014. As a Bruins fan, I don't complain, obviously.
Okay, that's a good question, because I didn't ask myself that question the night of the draft, and I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
I had him 13th on my list. Okay, obviously, right now, if you redo the draft, 2014, I don't know, is he the best player?
It's him or Draisaitl, I think.
It's him or it's him or Draisaitl. So sometimes I go rewatch players, or I remember clearly how I felt when I saw them, and I'm thinking, oh man, I really made a mistake. Why didn't I see that? Why didn't I see that he was not that good? Why didn't I see that he was that good? And I have to say that I attended the World Junior A tournament in 2013, I think, in his draft year. Pastrnak was playing with Jakub Vrana.
Oh, yeah.
Who was drafted 13th overall, by the way. They were both on the same team. I saw all of their games live, and I'm scouting them for the CHL draft, import draft. And I'm also thinking, NHL, and so I'm like, okay, I knew the two players very well. And I swear to you, if you can find clips of those games, Vrana was slightly better.
Yeah.
And it's not like Pastrnak. You talk about development, because that's the topic of the day.
Boom. Yep.
He went to the AHL right away, which was shocking, because he was allowed to as a European player. I thought he was going to be drafted by junior hockey. He was going to complete junior hockey for 1 year. Then maybe at 19 go to... No, they sent him to the AHL right away. And very, very quickly, he became a very, very good player.
Yeah.
And the Pastrnak that I see in the NHL is not the Pastrnak from the World Junior Championship, World Junior A. He was good. He was good. I had him 13th. But if someone had told me that he would become a top 2 player in that draft, I would have said, what do you see? What kind of bionic eyes or do you have to see something? And I'm not trying to defend myself. It's just to show that sometimes I go back and I watch certain players like Tyson Jost that I liked a lot.
Yeah.
And I had him ranked number 4. And I went back to see some of his games from his draft year afterwards. And I said, my God, what did I see? Why didn't I realize that his foot speed would be a big, big problem? Why was I blinded by some aspects of his game?
Yeah.
So I can admit, okay, scouting error, bad judgment, whatever. But Pastrnak, he just became Pastrnak. So that's why he dropped to 25.
Yeah.
It's not because they didn't scout him. It's not because scouts are idiots. It's not because other players were seen as so great. No, he was just... I think he should have gone a little bit earlier, maybe. But because I think the Avalanche that year, they had Connor Brickley at number 20. Okay, that was ridiculous. But there were some players who were high profile in 2014, William Nylander, Leon Draisaitl, Sam Bennett, Aaron Ekblad.
Sam Reinhart.
I think he probably should have gone, maybe between 15 and 20.
Yeah.
So it was a tad surprising that he went 25th, but not that much.
That's it. He's an anomaly. Really, he is.
He's an anomaly, honestly. He was a good player who became a superstar.
And credit to the Boston Bruins organization, really, top to bottom, who saw something in him, developed that something, and
or they got lucky. He was next on their list.
Yeah. Oh, listen.
But one thing is sure, they didn't take Sherbak.
Yeah.
But one thing I would really love to know, is where was Pasternak on the Habs list? Because they had the next
pick, 26.
So let's say Boston passes on both Sherbak and Pasternak. Okay, let's say Boston takes another player. What happens?
I don't want to know, Snake.
Well, look, Marc Bergevin knows, Trevor Timmons knows.
Yeah.
Lots of scouts within the organization know. Maybe one day we'll know. Maybe one day we'll know the truth. But that was, that was something that the Habs had no control over. And because had they had the opportunity to take Pasternak and took him, it would have changed a lot.
Bingo.
It would have changed the Habs for many, many years.
Yeah. Well, with that happy note, that's going to conclude our show today. Snake, anything else to add before we get out?
Just one thing for football fans who like the Sam Darnold story that, he was drafted in 2018. He went from team to team to team. Now he's in the Super Bowl. Google Jim Plunkett. Jim Plunkett, quarterback for the Raiders in the 80s, who won 2 Super Bowls. He was drafted number 1 overall in 1971. And he was seen as one of the greatest flops in the history of the NFL at the time. And then at some point, they rescued him from the scrapyard. Yeah, the Raiders got him from the scrap, and he won 2 Super Bowls. Google Jim Plunkett. Nice story.
I love stories like that. Those are just...
Oh, I'm sure you're going to look it up. Yeah.
They feel good. Well, that's awesome. Google that and enjoy the Super Bowl. Enjoy the festivities. And we hope to see you all again on Thursday because we're going to be back with another topic or top picks. And who knows, it might be one of your suggestions. We encourage you all to leave the comments, your topic suggestions, your questions, whatever they may be, comments, criticism, all the above. We appreciate them all. Okay. So that'll do it for us today. Thank you to producer Jimmy back at Master Control. Thank you to you, Snake. I'm producer Shayne. We'll see you again on Thursday. This has been another edition of the Sick Podcast. Trust the process. Take care.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast, Trust the Process on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.